How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tear Talk. Guys, great discussion today, live from the run, how social media became a weapon and a window in the Antoine Massey escape. Guys, we're going to go a little deep in today's discussion. So recently, Antoine Massey, one of the two escaped convicts left out of the 10 that have not been caught, released a video on social media. So today we are going to break down the video, but then I have my friend Joseph Pingaro on here. He's a retired lieutenant, and he's going to talk about how we investigate or try to catch people on the run when they start using social media. And it's going to be an interesting dialogue because we have the digital and then we have the physical, which is basically trying to find them the hard way, the hard police work. But either way, so could digital. There's a lot of work behind the scenes when it comes to digital forensics. Now, guys, again, my guest is Joe. I'll bring him on shortly, but we're going to watch two videos after I bring on Joe, who's going to introduce himself. One video is going to be from the news. That's going to give us the latest update. So today, right now, is June 4th, so we'll get that update. And then we're going to watch the whole 9-minute video. And then someone did request I break down the video, so I do have my notes from the video that I'm going to skim right through. And then we're going to go right into what the main topic's going to be. And guys, if you get a chance, I got a new podcast on all the different local platforms, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Tunes, called Lessons Unlocked. If you get a chance, check it out. It's a podcast that takes the lessons you learn in prison, from the staff side, dealing with human behavior, and then trying to relate that to the real world. It's personal, but I enjoy doing it. And again, I think you guys will enjoy it as well. All right, let me get Joe. What up, Joe?
Hey, how are you, Anthony?
Yeah, Joe, first, I'm excited to have you on. We got a long episode, but I know we're going to have some fun. Do you mind introducing yourself, Joe?
Not at all. Hi, everybody. I'm Lieutenant Joe Pangaro. I spent my career in law enforcement, mostly in the investigative divisions. I worked my way up through the ranks. I ended up as a lieutenant, a hostage crisis negotiator, and I enjoyed every single minute of it. There's nothing more exciting than a criminal investigation, and that is what I do. And now I write about it. I have my own podcast, the Blue Heart Podcast, which, thanks to Anthony's help, you can find on just about every platform there is out there, the Blue Heart Podcast. And I write a lot of books about law enforcement and criminal investigation, and I'm thrilled to be here. This is a great topic.
Yeah, I love having you, Joe. So let's go right into the two videos. So the first video is going to come from us from the news. I'm using it because right now, guys, we do need an update. So let me give you the most recent update I got from the news.
Massey, one of the jail escapees that's still on the run, posting videos on social media. And now you have officials in our parish and surrounding parishes telling him to turn himself in.
I'm one of the ones that was let out of Orleans Parish jail where they said I escaped, right?
17 days after 10 men escaped from the Orleans Justice Center jail, Antoine Massey, one of two men still on the run, pleads his case in different versions of 10-minute-long social media videos.
I'm showing y'all, the whole world, how corrupted the state of Louisiana is. I'm an innocent man. Yes, in my past, I made mistakes. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna say mistakes. I was just young. You know what I'm saying? But the system has failed a lot of people and not just me.
Meanwhile, his pastor, Robert Brown, calls on him to return to custody.
Turn yourself in. If you care about your family, turn yourself in.
Deputy U.S. Marshal Brian Fair says authorities are now thoroughly investigating the videos in hopes of locating Massey. Metropolitan Crime Commission CEO Rafael Goyeneche says the videos could provide clues to help law enforcement locate Massey.
Those videos and the social media sites that he posted those on, are going to contain metadata that will enable law enforcement to determine who posted them, on what platform, using what devices.
In the videos, Massey specifically calls on President Donald Trump, Kim Kardashian, and multiple rappers for help as he maintains his innocence. He also claims the domestic abuse battery case he was booked with at the time of his escape was filed by a jealous girlfriend. During the videos, he shows an affidavit his alleged victim filed with St. Tammany authorities. Goyeneche says the paperwork could be proof that the woman, who has been arrested in connection with helping Massey evade law enforcement, has assisted him. Massey also calls Louisiana's legal system corrupt, specifically calling out local authorities in the videos.
Jason Williams Susan Hudson, the sheriff, St. Tammany. These people are racist. These people are biased. These people are just doing whatever they want to do, and I'm asking for help, please, before they throw me away for something that I did not do.
District Attorney Jason Williams declined an interview Monday. St. Tammany District Attorney Colin Sims said only that he hopes Massey turns himself in. Sheriff Susan Hudson issued this statement. If the individual depicted in the video is indeed Antoine Massey, we strongly urge him to come forward and turn himself in to the proper authorities. Cooperating with law enforcement is in his best interest and may help avoid additional charges. It is important that justice is served appropriately and that due process is followed. Massey also specifically calls out Sterling Williams, a maintenance worker accused of turning off the water in the cell from which Massey and 9 others escaped May 16th.
Like, they try to paint a picture of me as this big old bad guy. Oh, I threatened Sterling, the maintenance man. How did I threaten you, bro? You can't even come around me without a deputy being on the tip.
Williams' attorney, Michael Kennedy, responds.
For him to get up there on social media and call Sterling a liar when I have already been out there saying, this is not what we are saying happened. I presume he is just going straight from the arrest affidavit.
Brown says he's hoping Massey will call him and that he can help him surrender safely. If not for him, for the peace of mind of his family.
If you care about them, won't you turn yourself in?
And authorities urge anyone with information about the whereabouts of Massey or Derek Groves, the other escapee still on the run, to call Crime Stoppers at 504-822-1111. The reward for any tip that leads to their arrest is up to $50,000 per fugitive.
All right, so Joe, you can unmute it for a second if you don't mind. So what I'm going to go into next, Joe, if it's okay with you, is I'm going to show now, that's a little bit of an update. I'm going to show now the 9-minute video. This is the video that went up live in Instagram, and I got some notes. So after the video, I'm going to read off my notes of some of the things I see in the video, and then I would love, Joe, after I read off my notes, I have 13 points I want to quickly push out. I would love your feedback on the video as well, and then we can go into I guess the search and hopefully the recovery. So if that works for you, Joe, I would love to now show the Instagram video.
Massey, I'm one of the ones that was let out of GC. What I want to talk about today is as far as why I was in Orleans Parish Jail. I was in custody for almost 8 months. All right, 6 months, something like that. I was in there for theft of a motor vehicle and domestic abuse involving strangulation. That's what I was in Orleans Parish for. Okay, but before I was in Orleans Parish, I was in a jail called St. Tammany Detention Center. All right, St. Tammany Jail here in St. Tammany Parish. There's 2 different parishes, Orleans and St. Tammany. Okay, today what I want to talk about is that I was on second-degree kidnapping, second-degree rape, domestic abuse, battery involving strangulation, domestic abuse, battery, violation of protective order, right? On this woman right here, her name is Diamond White. That's her name. This is a district attorney drop form right here. And she's not a child. She's an adult, a full adult. I was dating this woman. This is a legalized affidavit saying all allegations against me is false. All allegations against me is false. I was nowhere around her or none of that. During the timing of the date, which was November the 10th of 2024. Okay, so I was in St. Tammany, right, and I was on a regular domestic charge, right. So they put a parole hold on me because I was on a domestic charge. So that being said, is that once that occurred, and the charges was refused or whatever, they shipped me to Orleans Parish where I had more open charges. It was the theft of a motor vehicle and the domestic abuse, battery, involving strangulation. So once I got at Orleans Parish Jail, all right, I have from the district attorney's office, this woman who they say that I initially raped in another parish and in all these parishes, the same woman here. It's not different females. It's the same grown woman, not a child, a grown woman. Okay, she did the same thing in all these parishes, right? Correct. I'm about to show you how the system is corrupted. Okay, she did this, right? Saying all allegations against me is false, and she even saying it. You know, she let her know the truth that I never did this to her. I never hit her. I was nowhere around her. Nothing. She got mad and thought that I was dealing with another woman. That's why she did what she did to me. You know what I'm saying? Another thing too. Once I got into Orleans Parish, I was there for like a month or something like that. Okay, a lot went on as that time progressed. Okay, if you was an innocent person and you know the judges and DA know that this person is saying that all the charges that you're on that you did not do, why was you still in jail? Louisiana have the highest incarceration rate in the world for putting black people away. Yes, at the end of the day, in my younger life, I'm not gonna lie, I was causing problems. I was young. My daddy got killed when I was 7 years old. My mom had to raise 4 children by herself, so I had to find a way to try to help my mother. You feel what I'm saying? But as time went on, the person that I once was, I'm not that person today. That is not who I am. I have a 3-year-old son. I have an 18-year-old daughter that graduated yesterday, supposed to be. At the end of the day, that people don't understand that they see that I'm armed and dangerous. I have a heart. People that know me know that at the end of the day, I am a good person. So I'm asking for help from the world, from Meek Mills, Lil Wayne, Young Boy, Donald Trump. I'm asking for these people. I couldn't even get a lawyer. I couldn't even afford a lawyer to prove my innocence while I was in Orleans Parish jail. They said that I broke out. I didn't break out. I was let out. My name is Antoine Massey. The guy who said that I threatened him with a shank, the maintenance guy, how could I threaten you with a shank? If you can't come around me, you're a maintenance. You cannot come on the tills without a deputy being behind you. Because if they just let you on the till, you could be persuaded to bring drugs or anything like that nature. So how can I threaten you to jail you? And why you didn't notify the people, the police, that if I did threaten you, you never did that. Like, you flat out lied on me. Sterling flat out lied on me. And I want to let the media know that from the straight tattoos in my face and things of that nature, of course they're going to believe Sterling. You know what I'm saying? I never told Sterling nothing. I'm willing to take a lie detector test and everything behind that, but that's another subject. Orleans Parish is one of the corruptedest jails. That in St. Tammany Parish is the corruptedest jails in the state of Louisiana. Why was I even incarcerated with a woman saying that this never happened? This is this woman's name. This is the charge, domestic abuse violation. This is about the shit in St. Tammany. Why would I in Orleans Parish? Why was I even in jail? That's what I'm trying to show y'all. That's why I left the jail. And they have a lot more brothers that's innocent, just like me, that's trying to prove their innocence. That's why they ran. Jason Williams, the sheriff, Susan Hudson, these people are corrupted. These people was talking to St. Tammany and telling St. Tammany they gonna sentence me behind this, and telling St. Tammany if they can't give me, St. Tammany gonna get me. You see what I'm saying? Behind a woman that's a grown adult that never stated that I ever raped her. They have a detective that's over the case, that's trying to pursue charges on me because of my prior history. Who I was in the past is not who I am today. So I'm asking for the media. I don't even have a lawyer to help me. I'm asking for help. That's why I ran. You feel me? I'm a grown man. I have kids. I have a mother. I have a baby mother, a child, my children mother. Like it's a lot going on. And that's why I ran. I need help. You feel what I'm saying? Orleans Parish in St. Tammany is one of the corruptest parishes in the world. And I'm asking for help. It's a lot of corruption. It's jiggins, all type of stuff going on, and they covering it up. They don't care about nothing in the state of Louisiana. This is something that needs to go under a federal investigation. what's going on, how they having cases, why Antoine Massey was in jail if the woman, the victim, the wrong woman, not a child, the wrong woman stated that he never raped her, he never beat her, he was nowhere in her presence. This is the affidavits on the date right here. This is the drop form from the district attorney office. This woman went did this. I didn't do this. Look, it's legally paid. So I'm asking, please, for help. Young boy, Meek Mills, people, LBL, you know what I'm saying? People that been through the system that know it's corrupt. Lil Wayne, Donald Trump, please, I'm asking for help. You know what I'm saying? When I get back in custody, I'm asking y'all, please, to come help. You feel what I'm saying? I'm asking the world. I'm letting y'all know I'm not a raper, man. I'm not none of that. None of that. I'm a good person. I am a father that want to be in my children's life. You know what I'm saying? I want to let the younger youth know that going down the route of trying to be a street person is not the route. That's what type of person I am. Yes, I was lied on. They made certain lie on me. All the guys they picked me for him to lie on. I'm not saying Sterling a bad guy, but why did you pick me to lie on, bro? It's bigger than Sterling. I don't know why they picked me for him to lie on, but I never threatened Sterling ever. How could I threaten Sterling or hurt Sterling? He cannot come on a tip with me without a deputy being present. My name is Antoine Massey. I'm asking for help. I was one of the ones that was let out Orleans Parish Jail on May the 16th or May the 15th, 2025. So please, Meek Mills, Donald Trump, Lil Wayne, please help me. Lil Wayne, this is Big Antoine's son that's talking right now. I'm Lil Antoine. I was in your mama wedding when she married Rabbit. I was the ring boy, Lil Wayne. Please help me, bro.
Okay, Joe. So I'm going to just go off of some notes I took when I was watching the video. With that said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and read these notes from you for you. And Joe, if there's something that you want to add to it, please do. So I'll stop after each note because there's 13 notes here that I got from this video. So what I'll do is I'll read off each one. I'll stop in between to get your thoughts. And then, guys, we're going to go into the search and discovery. So the first thing I got is he says I was let out. The immediate deflection I put. I said right from the beginning, Massey tries to minimize his responsibility. He doesn't say he escaped. He says he was let out. That's a subtle but strategic use of language. It creates distance between him and the act itself. And you'll notice something interesting. There's a pause before he says it. That momentary hesitation feels intentional, almost like he's framing the sentence carefully to make it sound like he didn't choose this. That pause signals a shift in narrative, like basically, don't blame me. This isn't my fault. Anything on that, Joe, real quick?
Well, I'm going to say I noticed a lot of things in there, Anthony, and the words that people use are important, how they say things. Obviously, they spent some time setting this up. You have somebody from the wobble in the camera. It looks to me like it's handheld. So obviously, they must have talked a little bit about what they were going to say and the points that he wants to make. So you're right. He is making specific points, and I think we can go into that a little bit down the road a little more.
Okay, so the next one I got is the paperwork, a story that's in crumple. So he goes on to say the allegations against him are false, and he tries to show paperwork to support that claim. But that paperwork is crinkled, hard to read, and not treated like something that holds the key to his freedom. Now, this might be nitpicking, but anyone who's ever been incarcerated knows you memorize that paperwork. You live and breathe it. If there's a date that clears your name, that date becomes a part of your identity. The fact that he has to look back at the paper to recall the date raises question. Was it just a memory lapse, or was it a way to seem less connected to the details? Another effort to separate himself emotionally and mentally from the accusation. So I got a few more, Joe. Hold on. I got selective memory, remembering everything but the core detail. So he struggles to remember the date of the accusation, but remembers everything else around that time frame. That's a contradiction. If your alibi hinges on a timeline, that timeline should be concrete in your mind. Yet here, the central denial seems a bit foggy, and that weakens the credibility of the entire explanation. Like, it was funny how he had to look back at the date, but that's the date that, you know, she's saying this happened. So you would know that date by heart, because that's the date where your alibi matters the most. So I felt that when he was looking back to try to confirm the date, I thought that was kind of a bit of a stunt, but I could be wrong. Again, just nitpicking. Justifying the accuser's actions. So he makes an interesting move. He justifies the actions of the person who accused him. If the allegations were truly false and damaging, you'd expect anger, frustration. Instead, he downplays it and never mentions any charges against her for filing a false report. That soft justification could either be an attempt to stay calm or an effort to manipulate the audience by appearing balanced. And I'm going to add something about pressure as well, because I think maybe he could be pressuring her, and then basically to the outside, to the public, he'll make it look like they're working in partnership. Now, of course, sometimes people do and change their stories under pressure. That's a serious issue as well. So if the accusation is false and driven by external threats, then yes, law enforcement should fully investigate, especially if there's any concerns for the safety of the person making the accusation. That's a question I want to ask you real quick, Joe. All because she pulls back on the allegation doesn't automatically free the individual. Would you agree?
No, absolutely, especially in domestic violence. So anybody that's ever done a domestic violence call, we know we go to the same houses over and over and over. You know, somebody could really assault someone badly, injure them seriously, and then a week later they make up and they go in and they're not going to testify. I love them and I don't want this to happen, and the charges are dropped, and we're back at the house a week later. So that is that's a cycle of violence potential problem. But I did want to jump in on that one point when you were saying that he's holding up that piece of paper. So there can be a lot in there with knowing the dates and the times, and I'm going to agree that that would be important to me when these things happen. But there's a thing that we look at when people are interviewed, when they talk. There's two things I'm seeing here. Number one, if this was really off the cuff, you would see a different personality displayed, because it's pretty clear that they set this up to talk about it. He had props. He had his paperwork. When he's holding up that paperwork, that's what we call a flagged phrase, right? It's kind of like somebody gets in trouble, and then next time you see them, they're walking around carrying a Bible. Well, why are they carrying a Bible? They're trying to tell you, I'm a good person and I feel bad about this, so now I got my Bible with me. A very famous individual did that when he got in trouble years ago. But when I see that, he's got that paperwork. He's trying to show you there's paperwork to prove that I'm not bad here, and I should be let out. And I find that that's an interesting thing within the flag phrase world.
I actually lean on something like that very similar when, I don't know if we got a chance to see it, but later on in the video, he does mention about utilizing a metal detector. And I believe that I'll mention it, but when you don't believe in your own credibility, you may start to lean on something external, like, you know, maybe mentioning someone no one will ever meet, or a lie detector, because you're leaning on that credibility, because you yourself have trouble believing in your own credibility. So I also have generalized sympathy, so making it bigger than himself. Now here's a key pivot. Massey shifts from telling his own story to attacking the justice system. He starts speaking broadly about how African Americans are treated by the system, how justice fails people beyond just him. That's a strategic move. He's not just trying to gain sympathy for himself. He's trying to tap into collective outrage. That kind of generalized messaging pulls in a bigger audience, people who might not care about his case, but who feel the system is broken. That's dangerous for law enforcement, because now they're not just chasing a fugitive. They're competing against a public narrative that frames them as the bad guy. And we're going to get to that, because I know a lot of people think that when they go to social media, it could be a stupid move, and maybe, but also could be very strategic, because it invites people into their network that weren't normally there, and then could put some confusion in law enforcement, as now there's people that he just connected to from a bigger network, and now they got to deal with people that are going to give misinformation, people that may step up and try to protect them because they may connect to the cause and not so much what he's done. I also got the victim card. So soft admissions, heavy justifications. Massey admits to past wrongs, but immediately provides reasons. He talks about losing his father young, being raised by a single mother. That's a soft confession followed by heavy emotional context. He's painting himself as a product of struggle, a victim, not a villain. He then brings up his kids. He's a father of two. He hopes people will see him through that lens, someone trying to do better, someone with responsibilities. It's another calculated appeal to empathy. The concern, empathy fuels sympathy, and sympathy fuels assistance, especially online where people connect through emotional storytelling more than facts. Anything, Joe, before I move forward?
Yeah, 100%, Anthony. I think the question has come up. I've had people email me and say, "What should this guy's stupid for going on there?" And I'm going to say, no, absolutely not. We live in a world today where good and bad, right and wrong is upside down. We see that every single day. So creating this narrative for himself that he's creating is that, hey, I'm not a bad guy. I've been done wrong. Now, he might have been done wrong. We all know things go wrong. But the reality is he's using that, and all the points that you documented are 100% true. He wants people to feel bad for him, that, hey, I only got out of there because it was so bad, it was unfair and they were going to get me. I think this is going to bring a lot of sympathy to him. This is going to absolutely bring a lot of help in the way of maybe not overt help, like, hey, come stay at my apartment, but it might be, hey, just so you know, somebody was at my house asking about you. They're getting close, because they will identify, a lot of people will identify with his victim status. He brought up a lot of themes that in our modern world have a lot of power and weight, because I think a lot of people put themselves in that position and say, well, if that was me, look at the guy. He's got paper showing that this woman lied and he's still in jail and they're going to come after him. That absolutely is going to help build sympathy, and sympathy is going to build assistance to try and maybe keep him out.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, some of these people that tend to help them, even the advocacy groups, most of the time it's not even about the person being right or wrong, but they want to get the attention as well, because they know at this point he's getting the attention. I got reaching the network, so he does ask for influencers. So at one point he begins naming people with larger platforms, people who have reach. That's not random. That's smart network move. If even one of those individuals responds or reshapes his message, it amplifies his voice and possibly buys him time or protection. So he's not just talking to viewers, he's recruiting. I got the maintenance worker. Okay, so this is interesting. The maintenance worker claim, truth versus policy. So Massey brings up the importance of an officer being present while he interacted with a maintenance worker. So basically he's saying there's no way I could have done that because I would have had to have been next to an officer. So she says, like, how could that have happened? He said, when, I have to be next to an officer, where we know that facility, they weren't really following policy. There were, unfortunately, times when there were no officers on the floor. So I know on paper, what Massey says could be true. Policy should be an officer on the floor. But anyone in the field knows policy isn't always practiced. Short staffing, poor oversight, or routine fatigue can make policy flexible in real time, sadly. So he may be leaning on policy as a shield, but that doesn't mean his version aligns with reality. I also want to add one more thing here. He says how could I have threatened you? And he's talking to Sterling. But I want you to realize something. Even though he said that, he never denies it. He just says, how could I have threatened you? So I thought that was interesting.
Right. And it is. And let me jump in there. When people are telling their stories, when they're in the middle of an interview, and this is actually an interview, this guy is talking to everyone who's listening. But the reality is, when I sit down as a criminal investigator and I'm talking to somebody, they throw things out at you like that, these open-ended possibilities. So this guy's throwing at you, it's not even the policy. Suddenly, all of a sudden, he knows all the rules. He knows everything. Somebody let me out. I think that's pretty good. Somebody let him out of the jail, but it wasn't the guy who says he helped them let him out of the jail. So when we hear people doing things like that and throwing those things out there, trying to set up a case for themselves, this is the policy was, how could you have even done that? That's not possible that it happened that way. He's doing what many criminals often do in all parts of their life. They get over, they lie, they twist the truth to make the situation benefit them. In this case, it's just one more group of people, all of us, that he's trying to do that to. And we see that constantly. Wasn't me. I wasn't there. Well, I was there, but I didn't do anything. Well, I was there and I did something, but I did it for good reason. This is how a story shifts, and how people like this try to manipulate the truth, manipulate the facts to get you where they want you to be. And I see all of that happening with this guy.
Yes. Now, guys, as the video progresses, I don't know if we got a chance to see the whole thing like I would like to have done. That commercial came out of nowhere. But I have a couple more because I did watch the whole video. If you watch the whole video, you have bias and physical appearance. So he suggests that people will believe Sterling, the accuser, because of how Massey looks. So he's creating context. That's what he's doing. That's a projection and oversimplifies how investigations work. At this point, he's already escaped custody. He's broadcasting it. He's on the run. That's all the evidence anyone needs to understand the immediate concern. He also says that's why he left the jail. But remember, he opened the video by saying he was let out. So that's another contradiction. Was he freed against his will, or did he leave by choice? And I want to mention something else here. So I was trying to do something with News Nation. Unfortunately, my phone overheated, which sucks. I love going on News Nation. I feel like they're very objective. But what I wanted to get across here is when there's an escape, and we already covered this in my other videos, but when there's an escape, guys, it's not 60% the officers and 40% the inmate. No, accountability is not shared here. Accountability is isolated, and what I mean by that is the officers are held accountable to their level based on the standards they're supposed to meet. So there is 100% of accountability on that. But that does not go ahead and say there's 0% accountability on the inmate. No, the inmate has their own accountability. He saw an opening or maybe even planned it, but he is responsible for his actions. I love how people try to build this balance and say, well, the staff wasn't negligent, he wouldn't have left. So 60% accountability on staff and only 40% of it. No. He's not a victim here. There's no 60-40. It's staff's 100% accountable, and the inmate is also 100% accountable. He acted and escaped out of a secured facility. So I got a few more. Lie detector test, desperate for external validation. So he mentions wanting to take a lie detector test. That's more towards the end of the video. So if you didn't see it here, feel free to watch the whole video. That often happens when someone doesn't believe the evidence will clear them on its own, or can also suggest that he knows his argument is weak, so he needs to add weight. So he needs to lean on something else because he may believe that he's saying what he's saying lacks credibility, kind of what Joe said when they're flagging. It can also be an appeal to something outside the system. It shows a lack of trust in due process and a turn to public judgment. I got three more, Joe. Any thoughts on this one? Because you talked about flagging before.
Yep, I'm going to say, and there's a part of this that I don't want to infuse him with too much thinking, but you know what? If you're one of 10 and you're down to the last two, and he's obviously in an apartment where he has access to news, to media, he's got a camera, he hears what's going on. He knows this is an active investigation. They're trying to find him. The opportunity maybe to set himself up for the future, knowing that, hey, I'm either going to get caught or I'm going to have to turn myself in at some point. But he's making his case for the future. He's manipulating again. And that's why we have the flag phrases. That's why he's waving documents in people's faces. He's coming up with all of these things. He's setting himself up for the future. Other than, going down in a blaze of glory, as sometimes these people would rather do than go back. I think that's all what this is all about at this point. The world is closing in on him. There's 8 others been arrested. And he's out there somewhere. People know where he is. There's no doubt about it. When I look at that apartment, it's clear to me that people know where this guy is.
Yeah, and I got the last 3 points here. Again, a little nitpicking here, but I know other people that study body language, verbiage, because I've been trained by Mark McClish, the books he sold, and I love his teachings. I'm going to do something very nitpicking here, but double negative and absolutes. So one interesting line he says later in the video, if you didn't see it here, I would watch the whole video, is I never told Sterling nothing. I never told Sterling nothing. That's a double negative, grammatically unclear, but it's also an absolute denial, which can be risky when facts come out. Absolutes are hard to walk back. So basically, did you have an engagement with him? Did you not? Then the last 2 I got here is there's other innocent people expanding the justification. So towards the end of the video, again, he says that's why we ran. There's other innocent people in there. So that pushes the narrative beyond his own escape. Also, that's why he ran. So he knew what he was doing. that pushes the narrative beyond his own escape. It suggests this was some kind of protest or movement, not an individual act. So now he's bringing everybody in, and that reframes the story as righteous rebellion, not fight from justice. And kind of what Joe touched on before, but I did touch it here. The tone shifts, a man running out of time. So towards the end of the video, guys, there's a shift. He knows state authorities are closing in. You could see it. His voice changes. His eyes dart. The video feels like a last attempt to gain sympathy, to plead his case to the public before inevitable. And he also says, not if he gets caught, but when he gets caught. So that does slip out the end of the video. And I said, this isn't just a man escaping. He's at this point trying to manage perception. Okay, so that's it for these notes. Joe, anything you'd like to close before we move on to the search and recovery, which is going to be all about you now, Joe?
No, I think your points that you pulled out of there are great. I didn't see the end of that video, but I could tell where it was going. And that's where I had those feelings that he's setting himself up for once you go. In our world, one of the things that we know that people like is if someone has done something wrong and they admit they did it wrong and say they're sorry, there's a lot of sympathy. Matter of fact, we know that in court, one of the things judges will admonish people when they're sentencing them, they'll say, you did not take responsibility for this. You did not apologize to your victims. You did not show remorse for what you did. And therefore, I'm tacking on 7 more years because you're a hardened criminal. Well, the whole world knows that without reading a book or anything else. They know, apologize, say you're sorry, move on. And this guy, you could see he's setting himself up that, and you're right, justification. I put myself in his position and listening to him going, if I was wrongly accused, if I was trapped in a place where they were doing bad things to me, it's my obligation for my life to get myself out of there, right? Isn't that prisoner of war camps? You're supposed to escape. That's your job. He's setting it up exactly for that. I didn't do this because I wanted to be bad yet again. I did this because I had to. And that is sympathy that you're setting up for down the road. You know, and you will see, I'm going to predict, you will see an outpouring of support for this guy when he's taken back into custody, that, you know, maybe we should even, commute his charges because he was treated so badly. If he has allegations of impropriety, they should be investigated 100%. But that doesn't mean he should have left the prison. He should have escaped. He shouldn't have walked out. He shouldn't have been let out. He should have said, no, that's not right. I'm a changed person. I'll do this in court. All of this is nonsense.
Yeah, and he's also smart enough to know that context affects the narrative. That's why he minimizes his past by playing the victim. And then obviously he escaped, so I didn't really do that. I was let out. So anything that you would consider a concern, he finds an excuse for it, not a justification. Now, in our mind, we're also creating context. I get it. You know, we got an escape. We have his history. But we have a lot of evidence leaning towards that. So for us, I don't think that's an excuse. That's a justification, which now creates a perspective that I feel does outweigh him at this point. And breaking out of jail didn't help his credibility. You know, it just didn't help the credibility. Now, Joe, this is going to be your area now. So I got a lot of questions. These questions have come my way from people that watch the channel. I do have a lot of true crime fanatics on this channel that follow. I love them to death. They're from Duty Ron. I'm a big fan. They support me. So I just want to mention first, so we're going to talk about social media as a digital trail. So the first part is going to be how it benefits law enforcement. Now, granted, everybody, I haven't seen a perspective on this, but social media, it could also be strategic, like Joe and me have mentioned before. So it's not 100% beneficial, but let's go over how it benefits. So Joe, there's a couple of things here, then I'll go into our first question. So obviously you have every post or live stream comment leaves a footprint. So law enforcement can request metadata from social platforms like Facebook, or in this case, Instagram. Then you got the geolocations, IP addresses, which is the internet provider. A little bit, it's not as specific as a GPS tracking, but it gets you within a few miles. It gets you close. Then you got the Wi-Fi triangulation, so that's nearby known routers. Then you got the cell towers. Then we mentioned the satellite geotagging, which is if it's enabled, that's pretty much pinpoint specific, almost to a few meters. And then I also talk about speed matters in real time. Monitor may reveal habits or direction. Law enforcement often needs urgent court orders to compel companies to release data. and digital forensic teams use advanced software to isolate clues in video backgrounds like sign, decor, facial recognition. There's a bunch of stuff here. But now, Joe, the first question that I want to send your way right now is from, and guys, all these questions are coming from my viewers. From your experience in law enforcement, how helpful can metadata and geolocation be in cases like this?
Well, Anthony, as you saw today when we discussed having me come on here, this is something I had gotten emails about myself, the investigation that comes after a thing like this. And I wrote a couple of articles that I sent to you. I don't know if you can put them up on your platform somewhere, but I address a lot of these things. First of all, we are in a digital world. And when I looked at that video for the first time today, sitting here watching it with you, the investigator in me immediately started looking into the frame. What's in there besides just this guy? I was looking at all these things, but metadata, every time we touch on a cell phone, every time you do anything, you talked about that. So I'm not pushing my book here, but my book that's sitting over here called The Investigation. One of the things I do in there is I'm trying to teach the officers, bad guy went from point A to point B. How can you track that person if you don't have them in custody? You don't know where they are, but you might have some digital information. You might have some metadata. They have a cell phone. Maybe there's a GPS in their car. Maybe there's some kind of electronics in their computer that can be tracked and picked up. And you start to see that, and we leave our electronic footprint everywhere. This has now got to be a part of every investigation because it helps us develop timelines, locations, places, everything. When you were talking about the pinging, that's one of the things that we do all the time now, don't we? We ping the cell phone and find out where this person was. Where is that phone? Even if it's the victim's phone, that can help locate the body because the phone is still with the body. So electronics are extremely important. It can help us determine an area, a location, and then you combine that with the 5 senses. So I'm looking at that video now. If I got information that says that phone was pinging within a 3-block area of Johnson Street and Smith Street, now my physical senses in the background are listening. Am I hearing anything? We've all seen a movie where the bad guy's on the phone talking to the cops or talking to somebody, and there's a train in the background, and they're going, "What is that?" That's the L train at 33rd Street, right? Because these are all real things that we become used to. So combining this digital stuff with what we're seeing in front of us and hearing in our senses is very important to try and figure out where this person might be. So I think that's it. As you go through these, I do have some notes on this myself as I was thinking about this today, writing the article.
Yeah. Feel free to, add whatever you got to add. I mean, this is why you're on today. So there's a lot of questions here, guys. So bear with us. But you guys want coverage. This is what we do here on Terror Talk. You know that. So the next question I got for you, Joe, is what's the process when trying to access social media data from companies like Meta during an active escape?
Okay, so this is important. This is another write-up that I did here because I see how important this is. This has really become important, and the fact that you're focusing on it is a home run. So we know with most of these companies, and your show's going out here all across the country, we have to look at what our local prosecutor or our state district attorney, whoever it is in charge of us, how they want us to do these things. But most of these social media sites, I remember when the only thing that was out there was MySpace and Facebook. And we needed information on somebody's site. Where were they? When did they post something? That kind of thing. And I got to tell you, originally, it was very simple. You made a phone call to the law enforcement liaison at Facebook or MySpace or whatever. And it was usually a retired cop. And you'd say, hey, listen, we're looking for this person. This is the name of their account. And they posted this. We want to find out exactly when it was put up, whatever, whose site was it on, etc. And they would just give you the information. Well, the reason they just gave us that information is because it was kind of new. And we had to step into this whole world of the digital world. And what do we have rights under our Fourth Amendment rights? What do we have? We need warrants and subpoenas. There was a time when you would stop somebody and they had a cell phone in their car, and now I don't know, and you would open up the cell phone and look in there to try and figure out whose phone it was. Was it their phone or was it not? I remember when phones first started coming out, that they were popular everywhere, they were cloning them. And we didn't know if this was really your phone, if somebody else, and we would just open it up and go in there and see whose phone it was. Right now, you need a warrant to go in that phone. You need a communication data warrant. the law, the case law has caught up to us at this point, and you need to understand. So the big picture here is for most of these companies, these big ones, X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, Meta, whatever else is out there, Instagram, TikTok, there's going to be a law enforcement liaison that you need to reach out to. You reach out to them and they will tell you what they require. So I made some notes on that, and I just want to make sure I'm clear for everybody on what you might need exactly. So a lot of times, if it's if it's public information that's out there, you can just get it. Pretty simple. If it's non-public information, you might need a warrant or a subpoena, depending on the company and the state and the jurisdiction you're in. So you want to go and find who all these people are. We had them in my detective bureau. We had a list that we had set up of who the contact person was for each one of the social media companies, who was the law enforcement liaison. Something happened, you called that person, and then they gave you the go round of what you needed. Did you want just the account holder information, or did you want actual postings? Did you want stuff that's shut down? Do you want any more detail? Some detail you can get with a subpoena, some detail you have to get with a search warrant. But you want to go find who that person is. And in this information, I list a lot of that here. So again, I sent it to you, Anthony. If you can't put it up, it's going to be up in the Blue magazine. They publish a lot of my articles. It'll be up there. There are emergency requests, all right? One of the things that we see, I know we saw a couple years ago, there was a terrorist incident, and the FBI was trying to get into an iPhone. And Apple said, we will not help you. We preserve our data so much, we're not going to help you. And this, I think, outraged not just law enforcement, but I think the average person. Okay, we all want our privacy protected, right? Nobody wants law enforcement or the government looking into your stuff. But here's a terrorist, and there's information in that phone that maybe could save lives. And they said they wouldn't do it. Well, eventually they came to some kind of agreement, and now there's a process that you have to go through. Well, Apple's not alone. All of these other companies have come to recognize that there's times that law enforcement needs to have this information, and we have to do it through due process. We have to do it the right way. Get a search warrant, get a subpoena, do it the right way. But there are emergent situations where you can, if it's threatening to life, that sometimes they can speed that up. It's all about exigency and emergency. The problem that we have sometimes with law enforcement is that officers will make the exigency and get the information in a warrant, in a search without a warrant. They create the exigency, and then later on the court looks at it and says that wasn't actually an emergency. So we got to be sure we know what we're talking about and we do the right thing. So do it in concert with your prosecutor's office or whatever. That's something I would ask them for guidance on now before you need it. Find out what it is exactly they want, how they want you to do it, write it up in a document, and provide training to your entire staff. So everybody knows in the middle of the night, when this happens, here's how we get the information correctly. Because it's one thing to get it. It's another thing to be able to use it appropriately. Now, getting this guy off the street, and then they throw out the information warrant, okay, you still got him back in custody. But the reality is we do the right thing all the time, every time. That's what makes us professional. So that's what you need to do with that. So find out who those people are and get their information.
And guys, I just want to add something too. You could always put a pre-recorded video live as well. So basically, I'm not saying this is the case, but I could video him, play it on an iPad or something, and then video here on Facebook Live or Instagram Live, just videoing the live feed. And now this kind of goes into the next part too, Joe, but real quick. Obviously, timing's a matter, so that puts pressure. And obviously, people are going to make mistakes because, they're trying to move quickly to get this person. But on the back end of that, I don't think those mistakes will be forgiven by the lawyers from the other side, correct?
No, absolutely. They will take every single thing that law enforcement does incorrectly, inappropriately, whether purposeful or not, and they will twist it. And again, now here's your connection. You have a jury who watches the news. You have a jury. And where do we have our trials? We have our trials in our peers, in the place we're from, right? They hardly ever move a court to another court unless it's really been damaged in the pretrial notification and media, right? So it's going to be in the community where you're from. All of that sympathy you garnered is now going to put people on that jury who maybe saw this, and your attorney's going to go, not only did they treat him badly, it's a continuation of his message. They were treating him badly. It was wrong. He shouldn't have been in there in the first place. They're corrupt. They're racist. They're all this. And law enforcement didn't use the right procedure, didn't get a search warrant, didn't document it. And you start to see that in the mind of the people that, well, okay, he shouldn't have got out of the jail, but look what the cops did. Right. And that's a reality to this. The attorneys will have a field day with everything you do wrong. So learn to do it right is the answer.
And I got two more for the benefits of law enforcement. Law enforcement often needs, where am I? Sorry. How important is speed in these investigations, and what makes or breaks a lead early on?
Okay. So time is everything. Speed is very, very important. You get a lead. How fast can somebody jump in a car and take off? How fast can somebody find some other way they could take off on foot? You know, you're in an urban environment and lots of people are on foot and you know the area, you can get away quickly. So anytime we have any kind of a lead, the first 24 hours in a digital investigation is very, very important, because that information, that person can move. Like you said, they could have recorded it 2 days ago and now they're just playing it today. And now everybody's searching around, looking in a particular area, and they're already gone. So it is very important. What's that show? 48 hours, whatever, right? The first 48, where they're showing you in a homicide investigation. 48 hours is, if you don't catch a murderer in 48 hours, as a general rule, that's pretty close, because after a while, things start to get cold. People move away, they forget, they don't want to talk to the cops. Evidence goes cold. So time is always important. So that's why. And I hammer this home, because how many people do we see in the course of our career, our brothers and sisters, that are not properly trained, and often they're put in a position to do something they don't know how to do it, or they've never done it, or they've only done it once. The key for all of us is to be trained properly and stay up on it all the time. Everything we talk about in this program today should go back to training officers, and they should say, wow, what do we do in our agency for these kind of things? Right? And then create a program and teach your people what you want them to know about all of this. So there's another article I sent you today, because I think there's lessons in all of this, Anthony. And that's, you know, I'm a teacher. That's what I do, is that I looked at this. This is a prison. Okay. That's a pretty big facility, but all of our departments, most of them in the country, have a municipal jail area where we keep prisoners, either moving to court, or maybe they're going back, or what do we do in our municipal jails to make sure they're secured so that people can't get out, can't get away? So I wrote an article about that with a bunch of tips, because every law enforcement agency that has a room with bars in it has got to be aware that these things can happen. What lessons can we pull from that? And that's what I tried to put together for that.
No, perfect. Just for clarity, the escape occurred in a jail. It wasn't a prison; it was a jail. But I get sometimes people. And also, one of the concerns they had during the escape was that inmates like this should have been held at higher floors, because usually when you have prisons that are levels, or jails that are leveled, the higher the floor, the more dangerous the inmates. But that wasn't the case here. Unfortunately, they mixed classification. And then, of course, they blamed structure, everything. But it's funny because, you know, when we look at things, hindsight 2020, right? We look at things that could have been preventable. And now the funny thing is, what's a justification before it happened becomes an excuse after it happens. Digital, last question for this part, Joe. Can you talk about how digital forensic teams might extract location clues from even seemingly minor video details?
Yes. So this is what I was saying before. The digital world provides us with a lot. There are people that know exactly where that apartment is. So I'm going to ask you, everybody, go back and think of that video real quick. And as the investigator in me, like I said, I was looking at the guy, I was looking at everything about him. And then I was looking around that room. I was listening to see what I could hear. Digitally, they can look at if he's on a cell phone. Who are they talking to? Who are his associates? So we know we're going to go to the jail officials and talk to them. Who are his associates in and outside of the jail? Who did he talk to? What phone records did he have? Who did he talk to 3-4 times a week? Who did he talk to right the day before? And then we're going to probably look to maybe get a warrant to go listen to those people. I'm not saying you get a warrant every time, But the reality is you might want to go find out. This is a close associate. They're talking constantly right before the guy got out of there. They talked to this person. That's a digital footprint. We're going to go find that out. Did he go online? Did he open any of his social media posts at all? Did he look at them? Was he looking at them? You might be able to find a connection to where he might have been. So let me talk for looking at that video. The video itself is digital. It's a piece of digital evidence. So I said, think about it, because when I looked around and I say, this is how I know people know exactly what apartment that was he was in. Did you see in the background, there was a sign that looked like it was in cursive writing. It said kitchen, the word kitchen, right? That's a unique design somebody has in their home. Somebody in that neighborhood that sees this video knows whose kitchen that is. The maintenance man in the building who had to go in there and get the mousetrap or fix the toilet is going to go, I saw that sign on the wall in apartment 3D, right? So you start to look at that information that came to you through video. So somebody knows right where that is. I started looking at his clothes. Are those his normal clothes that he wears? Where did he get them? He took off in jail garb. How did he get that? What size are they? Too big? Are they too small? That can tell you maybe about where he's at. He's wearing a watch. Is that the watch he had on in jail? Is he allowed to have a watch in jail? He had a necklace on. Where did he get that necklace? Where did he get that jewelry from? That I don't know if you're allowed to wear that when you're in jail. I wouldn't think you would be, but that's what he had on. So that's what I'm saying. Those documents. Where did he get those documents? When he held them up close to the camera, you can see. I would stop that frame by frame and I would look at every single part of that and say, what is that? Where's that refrigerator? What's the sound in the background? All of that digital information is captured in that video, and that can help investigators put it together. It can be that minute, but there is so much information in the digital world. Phone calls, everything is a footprint now. Everything we touch, every time you touch a key or touch a button, it's recorded somewhere. That's a blessing, and it's also a danger, because if you're a regular person and they want to get you, they could find you. That's the bottom line. But there is a lot of digital information out there. And the more we put it as part of what we do in every investigation, the better off we're going to be. I wrote an article recently about AI in police investigations. I would look at AI to see how artificial intelligence can help you organize all of the data in a case like this. Where's the most likely place to look? It's an amazing tool if used appropriately. I'm remembering looking back when we first started seeing computers, right? I'm old enough to remember when they said, oh, the home computer, this is Star Trek, it's a fad. Is it a fad? Or does isn't my cell phone really a computer with a phone app? We're all digitized now. We're all on the computer. We're all everywhere. That information is connected, and we just need to know where to go and look for it and then put it together. The timeline, where we're going to find it, it can lead you right to an area. And in that video, I saw a ton of information I'll be looking at.
Yeah, and you have to embrace technology. You can't catch a rabbit if you're still a turtle. Now, this part here is what's really not being discussed on a lot of platforms, where basically everybody saw his jump to social media as foolish. I actually saw it as a bit strategic. But again, there's obviously risk on both sides, but there's also benefits. So if he planned this out correctly, this could be extremely beneficial. Like basically maybe he did pre-record it and take off, but he got the message out there, because maybe the message was, get me the support, but don't play it just yet. Let me take off, and now go do what you got to do. And once, like you said, with AI, all this stuff can recognize maybe a voice pattern, a facial, the tattoos, and then all of a sudden, because he's already a hot topic, social media may be just sharing it out because they know when they do, it's going to be a message that's going to be received. Now, the talking points for here, Joe. So we got, while social media can help law enforcement, also grows the escapees' reach, because that now we're talking about increasing their network. Massey wasn't just hiding; he was recruiting attention and possibly help. As his video spread, people may offer aid, sympathy, or even misinformation. He shifted the narrative from his escape to a broader attack on the system, and that shift can inspire sympathizers who see him as a voice for something bigger. Imagine the precedent this could set if his need to help gets entertained. Basically, it could push for others to look to commit the same actions so they can get attention brought their way as well. So again, be careful what you entertain, because if there's a reward to negative action, you're going to fuel the negative action. And this creates noise in the investigation. That's what I wanted to discuss, and may slow or misdirect response teams. Now, Joe, what are the dangers? Again, all these questions are coming from my followers. What are the dangers of an escapee using social media to gain sympathy or support?
I don't think it's a danger at all. I think it was actually, in the course of all things he could have done, knowing that they're closing in on him, I think it was a smart move. You talk about the sympathy that's going to be gained. How they take him into custody is probably going to be one of the key factors. And whether I think most people right now all across the globe seeing this guy are saying he shouldn't have gotten out of jail. We all know jail breaks are not good. That's just not the right thing to do. You shouldn't do it. He set up a whole sympathy line. He's laid this all out. How he's taken into custody can be the catalyst of whether this becomes a movement or whether it doesn't. So what I'm saying is, if he's taken into custody and he walks in a T-shirt and shorts to the local precinct of whatever department he's at and says, hey, I'm Antoine Massey, take me into custody, and they cuff him up and take him away, no incident, not a problem. He decides to barricade himself. He decides to fight. He has a weapon, and the arrest goes bad. It doesn't look good, because that's how the world looks at things. They don't understand. People don't like to be arrested. They think they have a right to fight back. People have these. He didn't want to go. You saw how bad they treated him in jail. That catalyst can be how he's taken into custody. If he fights back and causes a problem, he's already set up a whole sympathy world. Now it's going to be, okay, he shouldn't have escaped, but they didn't have to do that when they found him, even if he's got a gun and a knife on him and a dead body in the room with him. They shouldn't have done that. We know how that's going to go. That's the narrative that's out there across the country. That's what the whole defund the police thing was all about. Cops shouldn't be doing what they're doing. Leave people alone. This guy is innocent. Look at him. He's just trying to, you know what I'm saying, right? You get where I'm going here. So I think that can be the catalyst. The danger to law enforcement is that you might get people now who come up with fake information because they want to help him. Oh, I heard he was in Chicago. I heard he was in Detroit. I heard he was in Jacksonville, Florida. You might get fake information like that. You might get idiots that want to be involved in cases, because it happens all the time, and they call in with information. All those leads have to be followed up. You have to look at every single thing. The danger to him with going on social media is giving away his digital footprint. That's the one thing. His digital footprint. Where was he? What's in that background? The picture in that. I'm telling you, a lot of people know whose kitchen that is with that sign on it. And they're just not saying, because they already have sympathy for him. They know him. He's a friend. They don't want to get involved. They don't know who this guy is. So the danger to him is putting himself out there. He's leaving some breadcrumbs about where he is for smart investigators to find. But on his side, for law enforcement, I think it can only help him in what he's doing now. It's going to help him to make allies. People are going to rally to his side, even if it's just not saying something, like somebody who knows, gee, that's Mary Jones's kitchen. I know her very well, but I'm not saying nothing. Who knows what them cops will do to him, right? So I think that's the real downside, is for law enforcement, him going out there. Not for him. I think it's a positive for him.
Yeah, I want to add one other perspective to that. So if Massey's probably thinking, if I gain the support, I don't think they're going to keep me out of prison, so I'm still going to have to go in. So I think what happens here at the end of that video where he goes live, he does mention when he gets caught. So I'm thinking he gets the support, and once he feels the support's in play, he turns himself in, because now I got the support. I don't think it's going to be, hey, I'll get the support, come hide me. I think it's going to be, I went out here, I yelled out for that social support, so now when I go in, I got the support that's going to help me get through it. So I think that's kind of where the narrative shifts at the end too, when he says, when I go in. So I'm thinking he's hoping to secure that support first. Hey, Joe, how does law enforcement filter credible leads from all the noise generated online?
Okay, this is where you go back to old-fashioned detective work, gumshoe work. You have to take every call that comes in. How many cases have we seen? And, I've been researching some of these big serial killer cases. I write about serial killers. I'm interested in their thinking. And you see in how many of these cases did they have a suspect that they just didn't sort through the leads appropriately, or they didn't follow it up enough. So how do we actually figure out a lead? Well, I think there's a couple of opportunities to put the leads into a basket. First of all, they all have to be followed up, because that one piece of information, you might have 6 things in a lead and only one of them is correct. The other 5 are assumptions, observations that were wrong, something somebody heard was wrong, but they heard he was staying at Matilda Jones's house. And that's the true piece of kernel that's true in that lead. Well, you have to go follow them up, and that takes resources. That takes manpower. That takes dedicated officers to say, I have to look through these. We had a homicide in our town where a 16-year-old kid killed his mother, and he disappeared out. He killed his mother and he took off, and it was a really strange case. But as we started to narrow down into the wee hours of the night, we broke up all of these, who were all his friends, his associates, who did he hang out with? And we made a list, and there had to be 20, 25 different people that in the middle of the night, we realized we have to talk to every one of these people as quickly as possible. And I was assigned a particular guy. Here, you go find this guy. Here's his address. Go talk to them. And I got to tell you, me and my partner, we looked at it and we said, this is a one-off. We got to go talk to the guy. It's going to be a waste of our time, but let's go. So we go in the middle of the night. We knock on the door. It was a big, beautiful home. This 18-year-old guy comes to the door. Hi, how are you? Do you know this kid? Have you seen this kid? And it was just something in the way the kid was answering the questions. We knew there was something up. We said, can we come in? And he let us come in. We made sure he was 18 years old and he had every right to let us in the house, and we sat down. Well, after about 5-10 minutes of conversation with this kid, looking at his body language, watching his reactions, the words he used, I said to him, you know about this kid killing his mother? And he goes, dude, the gun's upstairs in my room. I said, what? He goes, it's in my room. We went up in the room. He opened the drawer. There's the gun. He brought it over here yesterday and dropped it off. Now, who would have known that out of this, all these immediate leads, this one seemingly innocuous, nothing lead, there's the murder weapon. So every one of these things has to be followed up, and that takes dedication of the officers. And you said it earlier, there can be burnout, right? We can get complacent. You can have people that don't really know what they're doing. This is a reality all across every business, but even ours in law enforcement, right? So you have to go through every single lead and make sure you follow up on every detail. And I said there's baskets. So you kind of know he's in this area, right, in New Orleans. We get that feeling that he really couldn't get away. If he's on a bus or a train or an airplane, everybody's looking for the guy. He's very unique looking with those tattoos. He can't go far, right, without getting recognized if he was to take those modes of transportation. So people are telling you, okay, he's in Nome, Alaska. Okay, you reach out to the Nome, Alaska PD. Here's the guy's pictures. Anybody seen anybody strange? Have you checked the airport? Have you checked the trains? Right? Okay. You get a call that he's 2 parishes over. You got to go there. You got to go knock on that door. You got to go do your surveillance. You have to follow that up. So we can put these into different baskets of likelihood, highly unlikely, highly likely, but then we have to go follow them up. Now, it's a long answer for what you asked, but that's really the bottom line. You have to weed through them. What makes sense, what doesn't, and then go take a look.
Yeah, and obviously we agree this the messaging, I think, was strategic. I don't think it was impulsive. And then, and we discussed that throughout the video. And then, Joe, last question to wrap up this section about it being dangerous, basically gives him a bit of an edge. How does law enforcement adjust tactics when an escape becomes a public spectacle like this?
Okay, you have to get out in front of it. One of the things that we learned in law enforcement through the world of active shooter investigations is you have to get out in front of it right away. Because if you don't, what happens is people hear about a thing, and if they don't get official information, they'll come up with their own stuff. Hearsay, rumors, social media stuff. And how many times do we hear, oh, the cops did this, and turns out they didn't do that. But that becomes the rallying cry because that's what people put out there because there was a lack of information. So one of the things that needs to be done right away is to get the public on your side. your press information officer, whoever it is that goes out there in front of the public, get information and make sure you clear up rumors. If you're hearing rumors, talk about it. The rumor is he's driving a red Chevrolet Camaro. We know he is not driving. That car that was reported had nothing to do with this case. This is what we're looking for. So getting out in front of it quickly and maintaining that connection so that when people want to know something, they come to law enforcement for the answer. They're not going, well, the cops aren't talking. They won't tell us nothing. What did you hear? What did you hear? And that's how the rumor mill starts. That's how people start posting things that are inaccurate. Get on the social media. Use the social media to do updates, do press updates. So as a detective, one of the things I had to do is I was the press information officer for a couple of years. I made a relationship with all the media people that covered our area so that if I had something, I would call them and say, I got something for you. They'd, oh, really? Oh, that's great. Then when I needed something, hey, can you put this out for me? I need to generate some leads. They would work with me. Hey, could you hold off on that for 12 hours while we're doing this? Most times they actually said, okay, 12 hours and then we're running with it. But because I had a relationship with them, I could work with them. The media is very important. Digital world is very important, but getting out there with real information quickly is important. And then keep the information coming as you get it.
You know, this next part, I'll help you out with Joe too. This kind of goes into the jail part. So inside the jail, what happens after an escape? And this is a great set of questions because it's going to connect my world to Joe's world so we can partner up on this. So once an escape is confirmed, jail operations immediately shift. Inmate property is sealed and reviewed for intelligence. All known associates, so inmate, staff, civilian visitors are interviewed. Phone records and calls are reviewed, even those made weeks before. Digital logs of jail communication, emails, texts, tablets, if they're being used, are combed. Staff are questioned, was it a breach of protocol, inside help, or manipulation? And the goal is to identify potential connections on the outside through internal behavior patterns. So there's 4 questions here. First question is, what typically happens inside a jail once an escape is discovered? So real quick, guys, you're going to secure the area, seal it. It's a crime scene. So is where the inmate lives, their cell. You're going to seize the property because everything at this point is evidence. You're going to want to grab the inmate's folder because in that folder is going to have a lot of information, including routine, including contacts. It's going to basically connect you to maybe what he may try to encounter when he gets released. That's why the intake process for an inmate is extremely important. Because it's going to give you all their contacts. So basically, or all their contacts. So basically, when they run out, they're in survival mode. And after a while, self-preservation, they're going to fall back into the routines that are most comfortable. So it's good for us to keep track of those networks, that type of community that they have. And that's why I was saying before, it becomes a little bit more difficult when they go to social media because then they're introduced to a greater network, which now could be a concern for us because we don't have that network. We don't know who they could possibly go to now. So now you have to kind of look at it again and say, okay, guys, not only does he have these contacts here, but since he's been on social media, he's getting messages like crazy. And now we got to try to figure out who is the person that's most likely to help them, especially now that they're in maybe a new state. So with that said, this is where this connection matters. Checking the phones, checking the tablets, doing your due diligence and working well with law enforcement. So you have your internal investigators, you have your authorities from the state or from the county that will now get involved, the prosecutor's office, and we all have to be communicating. I would love to see agencies working together instead of hoarding information because even this, I know it doesn't look good on the facility, but the facility should do whatever they can to catch this person. So if there's mistakes or negligence, okay, if it gets uncovered, don't hide those mistakes. Don't hide that negligence. Go let everybody know because we need to find these individuals. That comes first. And at that point, I want to mention one other thing. The facility should not be pressured to reopen. Right now, we're still trying to find the flaws of how an escape like this happened. So if you reopen it too soon, the likelihood of it happening again increases and there'll be public pressure. Let them out. My loved one's got to be let out. Stop. We just had an escape. This facility is going to be locked down as long as it needs to be to make sure we can run it safely. And that means we have to determine what happened and can it be rectified? And also, do we have capable staff here to handle danger. So that even goes deeper than the incident. I mean, if this really was on the back end of negligence and just bad leadership, whatever it is, I mean, do we need to replace that before we build trust again? I mean, it's a very strategic reopen. It's not something that's going to be done through pressure. Joe, for your question, I was going to ask you, how critical is the inmate's communication history, calls, messages, visits, in helping investigators?
That's probably the only place really to start. You got to look from my perspective. People that are incarcerated, no matter where they're incarcerated, they are outside of their normal world. And you said if they get out and they escape, they're in a survival mode. That's 100%. So what things we don't think about in our daily lives is food, shelter, and security. This is the beginning of the hierarchy of survival, right, for human beings. Well, if you're a person who just got out of a jail where you had shelter, you had a place to stay, you were secure, so to speak, and you had food and water. Now you're out, you're hiding. People are searching for you. You are now in danger, right? As the mindset of a person out there. Who are you going to reach out to? Total strangers? Well, there's a couple things we know happens when people break out of jail, right? And they're out there, whether it's a jail or prison. You can see unrelated burglaries in a neighborhood where maybe maybe there's food missing from a pool house, right? There was money there, but they took food, right? Why would you take food? Because you're trying to survive. So who you would call, in our case with this guy, Massey, he's in somebody's apartment. Somebody's got a nice kitchen sign over in the back wall over there. Somebody he knows well enough to give him clothing, food, shelter, protect him from everything that's going on right now while he's trying to figure out what to do, make his video. You need to find out who were they talking to? Who were they discussing things with? Who were they writing letters to? Every one of those is a bona fide lead and something that has to be followed up on immediately. So earlier when you asked me, I said one of the things we would look at is who did they talk to right before this happened? So as the investigator, I'm going to break this down in my head and say, if this was just a chance opportunity that somebody left the door open and 10 guys were standing going, hey, do you see the door is open? Let's go. And they all bolt out the door. Okay, that's one thing. But if there was any planning to this whatsoever, then they're going to have contacted somebody to tell them it's going this one of these nights. I'm going to call you from a payphone. I'm going to call you from somebody's house. I'm going to knock on your front door and I'll be there. But it's happening this week. That person has to say, okay, I'm going to let you in. Somebody let this guy in, gave him clothes, watch, jewelry, videotaped him, fed him, is keeping him. So when you break that down, you got to say, was this a chance escape opportunity, right? Or was this something that was planned? If it was planned, who they spoke to, right? Who they spoke to either right before, the week before, and immediately after, if they had ability to make calls, if they had family. That's why you check with family. Who are they making calls? Surveillances on places that they wouldn't go. A girlfriend, a brother, a sister, a mother, someone who would take them in without questions asked. You know, if you go to Old Man Jones up the street and bang on his door, he might let you in because he knows you're from the neighborhood, but he also knows you're escaped, and he might dial a phone the minute you turn your back. But your mom is probably not going to do that. Your best friend is probably not going to do that. Someone you're in a relationship with is probably not going to do that. So those are the people you're going to go to. So finding who those people are, who they talked to, who they wrote letters to, who visited them in the facility over and over again. Who is their attorney, right? Who is their attorney that might have done something? We see nobody is above suspicion in an investigation. We are suspicious of everyone and everything until we can cut them out. So yes, all of that is extremely important.
Yeah, and guys, if this was an opportunity, basically they saw a weakness and they jumped on it immediately, then most likely when they do escape, they're going to go back to some level of routine contacts because it wasn't something planned. It was something that was opportunistic because I saw the person when I was on the post. I'm going to run out there and they're going to go back to what they may be comfortable with in regards to the people they know. And then the longer out, it could become a concern because then they start to make a bigger network like we talked about with social media. But I want to say one thing that could also become tough for law enforcement on the street is that you do have, again, the original contacts that we all should kind of have and give it out to the police, the investigators on the street, so they can help maybe form a web here to try to trap the individual. But the longer it goes, and as we said with social media, what's going to happen here is now their network expands. So now you may look at behavioral routine. Like maybe the person was a big fan of Taco Bell. They may not go for Taco Bell at first, but when, they feel things start to die out, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to go to Taco Bell. But look at that, guys. That's a lot further down the road. So the behavioral routine is still something that holds weight, but it's usually not the first thing you go for. Am I correct with that, Joe?
Well, I'm telling you, it would be one of the first things I would look at.
Okay.
I've written some articles about this. I think it's in my book. I put in there, I called it signature crimes. All right. And patterns. We look at patterns of behavior because as human beings, we all have patterns. From very simple, when you get up in the morning, do you go to the bathroom or do you make the coffee first? Do you walk the dog and then drink the coffee? Do you eat breakfast? Do you skip breakfast? We usually do the same thing every day. For patrol officers, one of the things we teach young patrol officers when they first get out of the academy to get on the road by themselves is do random patrols. Don't do the same exact thing every single shift, because that sets up a pattern that people can recognize and take advantage of you, because human beings do things in patterns. We have signatures, right? And the longer we do something, the more we can pick out a signature. So when we have a serial crime, whether it's serial murder, serial rape, serial burglary, whatever it is, we start to immediately try to develop what is the signature actions of this person. So a burglar, a lot of burglars, shoulder doors. Other burglars use pry bars. And they don't just, today I'll bring a pry bar, tomorrow I'll do a shoulder. No, they're one kind or another. Then there's a cat burglar. These are people very unique. They go in at night and go into the house when people are there. These are unique patterns and signatures that people have. So I would look at all of that kind of stuff. What do they like to do? If you saw somebody that always has to have, I don't know, a special kind of drink that they have to have, if they have certain kind of food they have to eat when they're in the jail, I would go see, where do they sell that food? Where could you get that food? Do they have medications that they need, that they have to take every single day? Where are they going to get those medications? All of those kind of things immediately come into the matrix of the investigation. So I would certainly be back there talking to the people in the jail and say, tell me everything you can about this person's patterns, their signatures, behavior, everything. I'd go looking at that.
So I know, right. So I know what I'm, I guess I get what you're saying. So what I was saying was that usually when the pressure is there to survive, like medication may be a bit different because again, that's going to relate to self-preservation. But when there's a pressure to survive, there are chances where people, the superficial patterns, the patterns of comfort, they may actually be sacrificed because now I got the pressure to survive. But eventually, when that pressure's off, they may start to slowly go back for those comfort pressures. You know, like as I said, that's why I meant to say Taco Bell. And the reason why I was thinking of it, just on the side, I was thinking of Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy, when he knew they were coming to get him and he was down in Florida, he knew time was coming. He went on a spree at the college, because he knew, and that wasn't like him. Even though he did kill, he wasn't a spree killer in that moment.
Right.
So I what I was trying to get at, but I agree with you 100%, was that I'm thinking more of the routine of the comfort habits that, if I can't, if now your network has expanded, now it becomes a bit harder. Now we're going through social media. Now we're going through all these sympathizers. Sometimes what they'll look at is when the person starts to feel comfortable, they'll look at, like you just said, hey, listen, have we checked out these areas like the Taco Bells or he tends to like to eat there. Has anybody been shopping there that hasn't been there before, or pull the videos from these areas, or that's what I kind of meant.
Let me just it makes perfect sense, because part of the matrix of an investigation is you take ideas from everybody. Your idea is absolutely correct. Now that I'm actually hearing it, you're absolutely right. That immediate in danger, I'm out, and what am I going to do to survive? Right. They're not going to go to their favorite restaurant. Absolutely not. But as time goes by, if they can get a little space, I think you're right. Then they're going to go look at that. So you're 100% right. And what's great about an investigation is that you put people's heads together and you say, hey, what do you think? What do you think? And you work these things out and you add that to the matrix. You might come up with a timeline. When do we think he might start going back to these comfort things? If he's out 3 weeks and it calms down, starts off the news. He can move around a little bit. So that's all valid.
All right, and then finishing it off before we get to our last thought. I think we kind of touched on all this here because we were going to talk about strategic versus impulsive escape. So we kind of talked about how public perception. So many assume Massey made a mistake by going live. Reality is he may have known exactly what he was doing, shifting the narrative. This messaging gets attention, mobilizes sympathy, and distracts law enforcement. We talked about that. The more noise, the more cover, harder to focus on facts. And if he's thinking tactically, that alters how authorities must respond. One question I thought we can ask here before we get to the closing is, and I think we kind of touched on it, Russ. Sorry, so you said Russ. I think we kind of touched on it, Joe, but maybe if we could further elaborate, how should law enforcement, again, adapt when a fugitive or the fugitive seems to be controlling the public narrative? Now, you kind of touched on it briefly before, but if you could give advice directly to people that are going through this, like right now with Louisiana, I guess, their law enforcement, any advice that we haven't provided so far?
Well, I think getting on the information is important. I would be very, very aware of the fact that by looking at that video, he was trying to set himself up for sympathy now, to have people help him, and for later on. I would be very careful on calling him names. I would be very careful on trying to assuage people to think he's a very bad person, other than he's an escaped prisoner. He's dangerous, right? That's okay. But personal attacks on the guy, anything, I wouldn't get involved in that, because you just add to his narrative then. So I would say get on it quick, provide a lot of information, get out there and beat the bushes and find out where this guy is, talk to his friends, do everything there. But I wouldn't add fuel to the fire to help his narrative that everybody's against him, the cops are all bad, everybody's doing the wrong thing. This is a professional action. This man should have stayed in prison. He didn't. He escaped, and we're going to find him. Simple as that. Ask him to come forward. Ask his family and friends and associates. If you know something, help him. Help him, because he was safely in custody, so that this ends appropriately for him, so he can get the justice that he deserves. You see what I'm saying? It's all in the wording. He worded it well. On our end, we can word things appropriately too. We can play the same game using the media for our ends, which is justice.
Yeah, and Joe, I put the closing thoughts. Any closing thoughts, and also how can people find you? I mean, we got a lot of news network that follow this channel. So I mean, what's the best way to reach you, contact you? What do you have on the market? What's up with your podcast? Where, again, can we remind them about where they can find it?
That's a lot of stuff. All right. So first of all, the Blue Heart podcast. You can find that on YouTube, the Blue Heart. It's youtube.com/@Blue Heart Webcast, right? Even though it's a podcast, that's audio. On video, it's webcast, @Blue Heart Webcast. The podcast, like I said, you can just put in Blue Heart Podcast in any one of the platforms that are out there. My book, The Investigation, is from Blue 360 Media. They're one of our sponsors here, but they publish all my books. This is a soup to nuts how to conduct a criminal investigation. And you said there's lots of people out there that are true crime people. In my podcast, I do a segment with my daughter. It's called Murder and Mayhem with Lieutenant Joe and Marisa Joy. And we talk about a lot of high profile cases and criminal cases and cold cases and whatnot. But this book, what's interesting, if you're a true crime person, this is about a brutal double homicide that I investigated. And I decided to write the book in a different way.
Hey, Joe, show your book again, because I was loading the picture for your podcast and it came up right when you showed your book. So hold on, let's get that clear. So hold on. So Joe, you have two of those books, right? By Blue 360 Media? Yeah.
Yes, I got this one and the other one. This is a big poster. This is the interview. All right, nice. So the interview and the investigation. The interview is a soup to nuts understanding of how to conduct a proper, complete and thorough criminal investigation, filled with all kinds of stories and techniques and things that I use. What I want to say about the investigation is that instead of just teaching how to do a criminal investigation, I use a brutal double homicide I investigated as the backdrop, and I tell the story like a novel. So it's where your true crime people might like it. And then I say, stop. All right, now how do we find for the person from point A to point B? Good. Let's now go back to the murder. And he goes in, he kills everybody. It's really very brutal. Stop. You're the criminal investigator. And I teach about the crime scene. Then we get to the trial. How do you handle a high-profile trial, right? So the investigation and the interview from Joseph Pangaro. It's also on Amazon. You can find them all over. But you can find those podcasts. If anybody wants to email me, write me a letter and say, hi, ask me a question. I love to answer questions. It's joe@pangarotraining.com. joe@pangarotraining.com. That's our company. We provide law enforcement training for all our brothers and sisters across the country, remotely and in person. We come to you. We teach investigative things, detectives, patrols, officers, supervisors, whatever. So that's what we do. We stay very, very busy here. But
and that's your podcast, right, Joe?
That's the podcast right there. You click on that, and I think there's 100 and something episodes. I do training on there. I do interviews. We do the murder and mayhem section. We do Tales from the Road. We try and bring a lot of information to officers of every agency across the world to help them be better at what they do and to enjoy this amazing career that we all have. So thank you.
I think it would be great for me and Joe to partner up with some more podcasts. I mean, again, I have my podcast out there, Lessons on Lock. So I think maybe me and Joe could do some shows together where we talk about what we learned from the job and how it can actually apply to the real world. I mean, working in law enforcement, you deal with a different side of human behavior, but it has definitely helped me see things that normal people may not see because they haven't been exposed to it as routine. And I think there's a lot of lessons learned. Again, my podcast is Lessons Unlocked. And this is a great dialogue, Joe. I'm happy that you came on. I also have books published with the same publisher, Joe. So check me out as well. And as always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. Please stay safe.